Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to the NetSuite podcast. I'm your host, Kendall Fisher, and on this episode, I'm chatting about all things holiday planning with Josh Batchelor, Vice President of Technology for McGee and Company. Yes, as in Studio McGee. Now, if you haven't become addicted to Dream Home Makeover with Shay and Sid McGee, or become a total collector of all Studio McGee decor and furniture, guilty. The company has many different facets, from home decor to interior design, the aforementioned Netflix show, and a partnership with Target. Needless to say, Studio McGee has a massive footprint in the home design world, so as many of you start to plan for the 2022 holiday season, we thought we'd pick Josh's brain about how they're preparing for it. Of course, we can't discuss this season without looking back on the prior two holiday seasons, as well as supply chain challenges, economic volatility, and Studio McGee's current priorities amid all of that. We'll hear how the company uses NetSuite to forecast and plan for holiday demand, as well as bolster their website, prepare their warehouse, and ensure shipping and fulfillment meet their customers' expectations. So stay tuned, because that is all coming up next.
You're listening to the NetSuite podcast, where we discuss what's happening within NetSuite, why we're doing it, and where we're heading in the future. We'll dive into the details about the software and the people at NetSuite who are behind all the moving parts. We'll also feature customer growth stories, discussing the ups and downs of running a company and how one integrated system can help your business continue to scale.
Hey Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. I am actually a huge Studio McGee fan. I'm sure you hear this all the time, but my whole apartment is basically Studio McGee. So I feel like I understand why it's become so very popular, but you've been with the company since 2019. So in your own words, what makes Studio McGee stand out?
I think what has been unique about Studio McGee is Sid and Shay's vision really was trying to bring good design to the masses and be open about what they did. Mm-hmm. And I think with that kind of theology that they were running on, they've also been really good employers. So they treat their employees really well. And when they say they're going to treat their employees well, they follow through, which I think is not always the case with a lot of companies I've been at in the past. And I think that all shines through in the work that the company does and kind of what we put out there for people.
I love that. That makes me happy as a consumer of Studio McGee to hear. So that's awesome. And the numbers really, really definitely prove kind of its growth, its popularity. Can you dive into the growth the company has experienced over the past several years?
Yeah, it's been crazy, the growth we've seen. Going into, I guess we go back a few years, and we were seeing steady year-over-year growth. And then with the pandemic, we saw double growth, which was unexpected for us. Yeah. And so it's kind of just been that steamroller over the past few years.
So where does the company stand today? Like, what is the Studio McGee business model and strategy? So what channels do you sell, locations, et cetera?
Yeah, so we have McGeeandCo.com, which is our e-commerce side of the business. Which is kind of the bulk of where the work goes. And then Studio McGee, the interior design side, which works with clients to help them with their interior design needs, of course. And then we have a licensing agreement with Target. And there's a few other ones that are in the works as well, as well as the media arm. So we have kind of like 4 or 5 sub companies underneath the brand. And the other one's the media, which the book, Netflix, things like that.
Right. And roughly, like, we're going to be diving into kind of preparing for the holidays here. So this is a question that kind of filters into that. Roughly how many manufacturers do you have in your supply chain? And if you can name a couple of the locations where they're at.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, but I do know that we have some in India. We have some in China area. I don't know for sure exactly where in there. So kind of all over that area. And recently there's been a lot of those manufacturers have started looking at moving some of their operations to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just all over, as well as some US based, California, Portland area suppliers as well, or manufacturers.
Got it. Got it. Well, that'll be interesting to dive into a bit later here when we talk about the supply chain and some of the issues that businesses have faced on that aspect. Like I mentioned, we're here to really talk about the ways you prepare for the holiday season, especially with that massive footprint you kind of just alluded to in the many channels you sell through and services you offer. But before we can get into all that, again, we really have to look back at the past 2 years. So what obstacles did you face amid the pandemic? I know you saw growth, but what were some obstacles that maybe either came with that growth or other obstacles, like I said, supply chain, consumer buying habits, et cetera? And how did you navigate those?
It was interesting. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, when the pandemic kind of started and we started seeing it happen, we kind of were prepared to ride the year out thinking sales would be low.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I think like a lot of industries, the home industry exploded.
Yeah.
And so, we had, like you said, supply chain issues. So a lot of what we tried to do was really highlight what we had in our warehouse or in our fulfillment center in Utah
Mm-hmm.
that we could ship out, as well as working with some of our dropship partners to see what they had.
Right.
And there was a lot of things that we were looking to launch in 2019 or 2020, right around that time, that because of issues, we just pushed out for a year and, pushed back. And so there were some categories that we had a lot of new products scheduled to come out that we didn't get a launch and had to wait a year.
So how did that change kind of where you source goods or worked to increase the number of sources for, particular products or what have you? I know you talked about, adding some suppliers in Mexico, for example. Was that kind of part of that nearshoring, if you will?
Yeah, that was part of it. And I think the team was really good at looking at where could we start sourcing some of this material, manufacturing, and how could we increase the times.
Right.
Because I think not only did we have supply chain issues of getting things shipped to the US as everyone else, we had the issues of it getting stuck in the port.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which was a whole new thing that kind of just kept stacking on top of those issues, and so just kind of navigating our way around it of how do we better plan for it, kind of after the first wave, it was really trying to order things even earlier to kind of prepare for that.
And so would you say that that's kind of where you are today? I mean, how are you dealing? I mean, because they're ongoing issues. There's no debate about that. So is that how you're are you ordering things earlier? What else are you doing?
Yeah. So I think it was mid last year when we started to see there wasn't really going to be an end in sight to the issues. The directive became very much, let's start pre-buying. Let's stock our warehouse. We just, within the past, 3 months, time flies, I feel like, we just brought on a new fulfillment center online. It's over 300,000 square feet. And so with that added space, it was just like, okay, let's fill it up.
Right.
Let's be prepared for delays. Let's have all of our holiday stuff pre-purchased and ready to go when we start selling holiday.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of brings us to what we're here to talk about today. So, I mean, I'm excited to get into how you're planning for the 2022 holiday season. But again, we've got to look back on the last couple of years. I'm curious, how did the issues that you faced amid the pandemic, how did that impact the way you approach the 2020 and 2021 holiday seasons? What did you expect and how did you kind of plan around that?
It was crazy. And I think it was, 2020, it was just do whatever we can.
Yeah.
Like whatever we can to help our customers get the stuff they want. 2021 was very much more, we were prepared, but I still think that everyone was optimistic. I think industry wide, everyone was optimistic, like, oh yeah, things are going to get better early in 2021 and it'll be fine by the end of the year. But we did start, like I mentioned for this year, we did start pre-buying and start stocking more inventory as much as we could in our small warehouse. And we kind of got lucky and was able to start utilizing the new warehouse before it was 100% online to store things. So we kind of just started loading up as much as we could to make sure that when people ordered, we could get it there in a timely manner.
Yeah. And how are you utilizing NetSuite to guide some of that? What data were you looking at? I mean, what decisions were you making with NetSuite?
Yeah, for the most part, the team tends to look at, what were previous year trends, what are even big sellers during different quarters. And so looking at that data, they were able to kind of put together, their forecast of what they think is going to be trending this year, as well as, the new items coming out and knowing what the trends are industry wide. They were able to kind of use that data together with the data we're pulling on NetSuite of historical and coming up with a good plan to lead into the seasons.
So what actually happened in 2020 and 2021? I mean, again, you had noted like you were in 2020, you thought home buying was going to slow down. I mean, what did you see actually come out of those holiday seasons?
We set records. We beat projections for those time periods, which, talking with people in other industries, that wasn't the case for everyone. I mean, like I said, I think home goods was one of the outliers that did see the bumps. So yeah, for us, 2020, 2021, they overshot projections and in some cases doubled what we expected. So
and you had the inventory on hand to meet that demand?
Luckily we did. And
wow.
For the things that we didn't have in stock or things that were back ordered or delayed, most of our customers were willing to wait and were kind of prepared for that to happen.
Right.
And so we were able to still fulfill their needs. Maybe it took them 6 weeks to get it, but they were kind of prepared for that.
Right. So bringing it to today, I mean, we're still dealing, like we said, we're still dealing with some of those supply chain repercussions. And then now we've got the added challenges of inflation and economic uncertainty. So what are Studio McGee's priorities around all of this right now? How are you navigating the current climate and looking at kind of consumer trends right now?
Those are tough questions. What we're all doing. No, I think, some good news is for us, we've started to see some of our supply chain issues lessen how bad they are. So we're starting to see some of that kind of resolve itself or be resolved. And then I think with the inflation stuff coming into this year, we really looked at the year and said, this year's a year for us to do refinement. Knowing that sales are probably going to level off and it wasn't going to be crazy. We were going to do what we had planned on doing in 2019 and refine our processes. Right. And so that's really what we've been doing this year is refining as well as looking at how can we make what we offer, more enticing to the end users or to our customers. What value add can we bring, and how can we make it just better and make it a place that customers are willing to spend their dollars?
Right. I mean, we are hearing that a ton. I think customer retention is a big topic of conversation. Obviously, everybody's always looking at customer acquisition, but how do we keep our current customers coming back? Yep. So I think that's a big component to all of this. So how do you see this impacting the 2022 holiday season, specifically for Studio McGee? Like how do you see things being different this year than some of the stuff you mentioned over the past couple of years?
If I had a crystal ball, I'd have the exact answer, but I think which we all wish we had. We're still trending wise. What we've seen industry wide is we still think that the holiday season will be, quotes normal. But I do think the customer is going to be a little bit more discerning on what they buy.
Right.
They may not rush out and buy all the things they want. They may be a little bit more picky about what they're choosing. And so I think for us, it's like I said, it's really making sure that we're putting things forward that are ready to ship.
Right.
So that customers are knowing that when they do spend the money on buying a sofa or artwork or kind of whatever it is, and they want it quickly, that they are going to have that confirmation they're going to get it pretty quick.
And when you're looking at that, like looking at the items, like you said, that are ready to ship, or, looking at what you think are going to be some of the trending items coming into the 22 holiday season. What data are you diving into? How are you using that data to drive decision making? And then on top of that, how does NetSuite fit into all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. So, all of our data is in NetSuite. So all of our reports are coming out, and we're using this year. One of the refinement things we've done is launch NetSuite Planning and Buying, NSPB, which is helping kind of wrangle that data. In previous years, the team has been using exports of data into Excel and kind of building their own data lake on their computers to figure this stuff out. So that's kind of giving the data easier access for them to pull reports and to look at data that way. And it really is, looking at the trends of previous years. The other nice thing or smart thing that McGee has done is most of the products we manufacture and create and sell aren't super trendy. Like, they're not popular one year and they're gone the next.
They're more timeless.
Yeah, they're timeless pieces that tend to sell the same year over year.
Well, that's good to know. Also good to know for me on a selfish
and so
selfishly speaking, with my entire apartment being Studio McGee.
right. And so I think it's nice for us in the sense that we kind of know what people are going to want in the holiday season.
Right.
And we're going to add new products that kind of fit in the same category or the same, style. But it's not going to be something that is really cool this year and is dead next year. And so that kind of helps us with the kind of forecasting and trending and creation that way.
How did 6 out of the top 7 best performing tech stocks gain visibility and control over financials, inventory, planning, and budgeting with NetSuite by Oracle? Answers at netsuite.com/code. netsuite.com/code.
So for someone who doesn't really know what it takes to prepare for a holiday season, like, what actual steps are you taking right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, by right now, we're pretty ready to go for holiday season. From a design perspective on products, I think they're currently working on next holiday season already.
Wow.
So from now until, Black Friday, which really is the month of November,
right.
It's just kind of getting everything in a row, making sure our shipments are coming in, getting them stocked in the fulfillment center, making sure that the fulfillment center is ready to go, and kind of buttoning up all the things on the website and in NetSuite, and make sure that we're looking good and ready for the rush. And I think what will be interesting for us this year with the new fulfillment center is we are implementing robots to help with picking.
Wow.
And so we're kind of launching this whole new system before the holiday rush that should help expedite shipping and kind of give us some efficiencies there that we, in the past haven't had.
Wow. Are you a little nervous at all about that? That's a big change.
It is a big change. And we're optimistic because really the robots we're using they just help with the picking piece of it.
Okay.
So it's not like they're going to pick it themselves.
Right.
I'm sure there's a better name for what the actual model is or what it is, but I'm just going to call them robots. They have the picking list on them and they know what row to go to. And then one of our employees will be there to kind of pick the right item based on what's on there, put it on the robot, mark it off. And then if there's nothing else on that row, the robot knows to go back to the packing station and drop it off. And so that, yes, there's a little bit of nerves. I think all that stuff's coming online by the end of August, we'll be up and running with it. So we'll have a few months to kind of work out the bugs. But, the worst case scenario, maybe they're not working the way we need them to, maybe something goes wrong. We just turn them off and go back to the manual process. So, but yes, I'm always a little bit nervous making new things.
Well, a new process, everybody is. Okay, kind of like switching gears here a little bit. As you mentioned, you partner with major retailers like Target. So on the distribution side, what do those partners expect from Studio McGee, specifically around the holiday times?
The nice thing about our partnership with Target is they deal with the entire logistics side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's really our team going in, designing the products, working with their team, and then kind of stepping back and letting them manage getting it manufactured, getting it stocked in stores. So it's very low for us, thankfully.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
It's more, it's more on the marketing side and on Shay's time that really goes into the Target kind of deal, and less about us having to help get product in the doors.
Got it. Interesting. That's something I actually have not heard before. Sometimes we work with like health and beauty products, and it's a different kind of
Right.
strategy there. So that's really interesting to hear. And obviously, good for you guys, because it's like, hey, we get to, we kind of get to let them do what they're good at.
Yep.
But I have to bring this up because this is relatively kind of new news, but topic of conversation right now. Walmart and Target missed their earnings estimates in part because they loaded up on inventory thinking the consumer would still be buying stuff right now. But as it turns out, and as I've seen all over my Instagram and TikTok, the consumer is buying more services, airlines, hotels, etc. So Target and Walmart have too much stuff on hand. How has this affected Studio McGee, and how will it affect, anything around the holidays, if it does, or if Target just comes in and kind of, like you said, handles that logistics part themselves?
Yeah. I think we've been lucky, and this is just, I don't have all the data into the Target and kind of the real numbers, so I'll just go off of
Right.
my observations. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we've been lucky that for the most part, our Target line tends to sell out pretty quick. As I'm sure you've experienced it, it's stuff.
Yeah,
and so
I waited for I guess you would call it, I don't know, there's a more specific name for it, but it's kind of like a little mini bar thing. And I waited for a very, very long time, and I was so glad when I got it.
Yes. And sadly, I don't even have access to get that stuff early because my wife is constantly like hitting me up about something at Target that she wants. And I'm like, you just got to go to Target and hope you get it. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. You got to know which Target to look at.
Yes,
That's also the key.
That is the key. So we've been lucky that they didn't stock more inventory than they could sell of our line.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's some locations across the country that maybe they did that we don't sell as well. I'm not sure, but I do know, at least for all of the Targets here in Utah that I've been to, they've tended to be picked over very well.
Yeah. And same for all of the Targets here in Los Angeles, I can assure you, and in all of the suburbs around Los Angeles.
Exactly. So I think, again, just conjecture. Right. I'm sure that they will probably be a little more reserved with what they order. Even for our lines, they'll probably, find the number that's been magical for them that sells out. Right. And I would imagine stick around that number. But, I have seen, after reading the news and going to Target, there was a lot of men's clothes now, like overflowing clothes.
Yeah.
Sweats.
Yeah.
And so
it's not necessarily a Studio McGee, but some of these other product that they kind of, I guess, overestimated how much would be purchased. Okay, well, that's great insight from your side of things. Okay, on the e-commerce side though, what steps do you take to draw more people to shop with you? And then how do you prepare for that larger volume of, like you said, like, especially, Black Friday, which is all of November. How do you prepare for that influx, that larger volume of online orders?
Yeah, we look at historical data to kind of help us decide how big our fulfillment center team needs to be around the holidays. And I think historically we always bring on, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I'll say 5 to 10 seasonal workers to help fulfill orders. And then we really, here soon, we'll stop making changes to the website.
Right.
And we'll just kind of, go into a freeze, know things are working right. Only do kind of cosmetic updates to push for the holiday season. And then from the holiday season side, it's really, I wish we had all the answers on what's going to make customers come in. But it's starting the advertising push through our socials with our huge followings.
Right.
As well as with targeted ads and kind of things like that, and starting to just find the right message to get people interested to come come shop.
Okay, so marketing is a big push for you guys this time of year.
Yes.
What data are you tracking to monitor your customers' expectations, and how have you seen those metrics really change over the past few years? I mean, delivery times, order visibility and tracking, I mean, all of that has really ramped up, especially amid the pandemic and people ordering online more than ever before.
Yeah.
So what kind of things have you seen with your consumer base?
I mean, I think you highlighted some of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Consumers are really concerned about lead times, and only so much we can do. I think
Right.
I think what we found has worked the best is just being upfront with our consumers about it, it is going to take us 6 weeks. Here's why, and trying to be transparent. Like, this is why it's going to take so long. It's not because, we're sitting around drinking Mai Tais. Like, no, it's just because it's going to take a delay to get here.
Yeah.
And I think transparency is one of the biggest things that consumers are wanting.
Yes.
And I think it shows social is a very good and bad kind of gauge of how our consumers feel.
Mhm.
Because, as we all know, you get a lot of people who scream fire when it's only, a match.
Right. Exactly.
But I do think our social team does a good job of staying on top of those and seeing trends. If they start to see 2 or 3 messages or 5 messages or whatever the number is of people saying the same thing, they tend to raise the flag really quick and be like, okay, this might be an issue. Can we look into it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then kind of, customer service and the tech teams and kind of all the different teams will dive into it and be like, okay, is this thing really an issue? Or is this just, an offshoot of people having issues? So I think that, coupled with, customer service data, the tickets that are opened, all put together, kind of gives us that insight.
And like, kind of on that same level of transparency, can you fulfill from any of your warehouses? And is that transparent to the customer?
So right now we just have one.
Okay.
So we just have the one big one. We had a smaller one that we, within the past few weeks, have migrated everything out of.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you still had both. Like, you mentioned the new one, and I wasn't sure if you had. But okay, got it.
And so I'm sure over the next 12 to 24 months, we may bring another one online. We've had discussions around logistically opening another one and finding out where that is, whether it's an East Coast or a West Coast, or kind of, and trying to help with that. And I don't know if we would ever share that with a consumer where it's coming from.
Yeah.
But right now, luckily, fingers crossed, it's nothing to work on. We have just the one, so it does make it easier.
Got it. Now, I haven't heard you express this, but Studio McGee is really a curated selection, and that's kind of how people refer to it. But what happens when some of those key pieces, don't show up on time for the season they're intended for? So maybe this happened in 2020 and 2021, and now you've gotten ahead of it. But back then, like, how did you prepare around that?
In 2020, we weren't super prepared to have the delays. I think it kind of hit everyone in the side of the head of like, oh, wait, this stuff's not going to be here on time. And so, I think a prime example is we had some outdoor pieces that were supposed to be here, ready for outdoor season. So what would that have been? March, April-ish. And I don't think the shipments came till June, July. And so that's one of those ones where you have to sit down and look at it and go, does it make sense to even launch it right now?
Right.
Or do we just say, okay, let's put it on the shelves, or let's put it in the warehouse and let's wait for the next season?
What'd you guys do?
I think it was a mixed bag. I think it really was just depending on, how we're sales doing for outdoor in general, or whatever category in general. And does it, are we going to see sales, or is it just going to come out and be like, did we miss the boat?
Okay.
And if so, if we thought that we had missed the boat, if it was too far down the path, then I think we just kind of stuck it on the shelf and said, okay, this is going to launch next year, and we're ready to go.
Got it. Well, as we kind of alluded to earlier, and especially as you were talking about looking into the next 6 months to a year, and how you are, planning around inflation and kind of a volatile economy that we're finding ourselves in right now. A lot of businesses are really looking for ways to improve their bottom line increase efficiency and productivity. I mean, you're even doing it with the robots and really driving more profitability than ever. Is this a priority for Studio McGee right now? And how does that impact holiday planning?
Yes, I think it's always a concern. And I think, we did a price hike or price change increase on our products a month ago.
Okay.
2 months ago, month and a half ago, something like that. And we sent out a mass email to our customers, letting them know.
Yeah.
And being transparent of it's not because we're trying to increase our bottom line. It's because everyone before we get it has raised their prices. And so we have to we held off as long as we could before we were like, okay, we have to kind of adjust our prices. And so I think with that, it's also figuring out how to stay profitable or be profitable with compressed margins. And just doing all that we can to kind of find that happy place where we're not having the consumer shoulder all of the costs, but at the same time, not sell things at a loss.
Right.
And so it's looking into that. And then I think, like you mentioned, it is really looking for efficiencies. It's looking through trends, looking through what we're spending on things. Can we find, another location to have it manufactured in that's going to help cut down on the supply chain cost, and just kind of try to find those efficiencies. And then internally, it's really for, part of my team, the NetSuite admin team, it's really looking at the way that people are doing their jobs internally and saying, how can we make their job more efficient? Is there workflows or is there additional functionality we can add to NetSuite or add to their jobs that's going to help them be more efficient and kind of find those types of things?
Absolutely. Yeah. More automation to really, again, that all kind of leads back to the less, I don't know, manual processes or things that they're doing that are taking up a good chunk of their time and taking them away from strategy and future planning, right? So that all results in more productivity. Great to hear that. And I mean, this kind of probably, you basically kind of answered this, but I am curious beyond the holidays. I mean, we talked a lot about the holidays and how you're kind of navigating that, but what is Studio McGee looking to tackle over the next, let's call it, year, and how will NetSuite help you get there?
Yeah, it's going to be continuing the refinement of our processes and just spending more time looking at the data and figuring out, where are we bloated with our process, and where are we bloated with supply chain costs, or just trying to find those efficiencies and really dive into ways to make them better.
Absolutely.
As well as deciding maybe we don't have enough people in certain areas.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of that just comes through this process of finding that out.
Right. So. Well, very, very interesting stuff. Again, I think this is everything you hit on today is what we're hearing, from businesses all over the world and in every industry. So really insightful, really interesting to hear how y'all are planning for the holiday season this year, and definitely looking forward to, seeing the future growth for Studio McGee. And we just appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks so much to Josh Batchelor from Studio McGee for joining us and sharing that insight around preparing for the holiday season. I have left a link in the description of this episode for more information about how Studio McGee uses NetSuite, so be sure to check that out. I also want to shout out to our editing crew over at Lampstand, and as always, all of you for tuning in. Hey, if you like what you learned, there is always so much more where that came from, so be sure to subscribe to our channel, like and review this episode, and go give us a follow on social media. I've left some handy dandy follow links for you right at the bottom of this episode description. Thank you, and cannot wait to chat with you soon. Bye.
You just listened to the NetSuite podcast. Be sure to tune in every week with more NetSuite developments, stories, and insights into the benefits of one integrated system to help you run your business.